Hello, everyone, and welcome to Channel Within. My name is Mira, and I'm pleased to announce that in addition to meditation, I will now be speaking to guests on different topics in the realm of spirituality. These topics may include near death experiences. Today, I will be talking with Lewis Brown Griggs, a man whose near death experiences have allowed him to live more fully, to be fearless, and to engage with others in a more authentic and to be fully present. I hope that you guys enjoy listening to him narrate his near death experiences and that in doing so that we may also reflect that we can not only have these awakenings when we're on the other side, but we can have them while we are awake right now, right here. Thank you so much. Listen and enjoy. Thanks so much, Lewis, for joining me today to talk about your NDEs. I'm very excited to hear about them. And I don't know if you wanted to start with life before the NDEs or at the first one. You can just take it away.
I guess I'll start with the history because it's related to what happened in the light. And that is that I was raised in Minnesota in a 14 generation old, all English blood from New England, and six generations in Minnesota. And the reason that's relevant is that for my first 20 years growing up, I lived in a very, very white, very ethnocentric culture, all Midwestern friendly, etc. No negative energy, but I now, in hindsight, know how much ethnocentric ignorance there was and is mostly throughout the entire Midwest of our continent, Canada and Minnesota, because most of us came from Northern Europe long ago. So that's a short part of the history. And then I moved to California um, after being in New England for 10 years, four of which was at college. And I drove all the way across the country in love with a high school girlfriend who was in law school in San Francisco. So I just moved from one public television station in Boston to one in San Francisco. And yet I still, let's say at age 27 to 29, those kind of 2 years, never knew what I really wanted to do when I grew up. Now, I can smile and say that's typical of males sometimes because that certain part of our brain doesn't develop as quickly as it does for females. I was very successful. I had good jobs in the government and in public TV, and but I still didn't really know what, when we ask, what are we here for? What's our life purpose? That some of us ask that. And I didn't know the answer, even though life was fine. So the reason that history is relevant is that on March 11, 77, right after I had moved here to the San Francisco Bay Area, I totaled my automobile um, in an accident with a truck coming 90 degrees the other direction. There were no stop signs. And at that moment, I want to say I now, meaning my soul, my spirit, my essence, call it what you will, because mind, body, and spirit are different words for a reason. And it wasn't my body that went up to the light, and it wasn't my brain that went up to the light because that stayed in my body. So I want to say my essence, my soul, my spirit, whatever, went flying high speed through what we call the tunnel. Many of us who've been out and back, and I went all the way to the only word I can use is the source of all light, love, energy, spirit, knowledge, consciousness, etc. And now I know those are words that are coming out of my brain, but up there, it was just my soul feeling that I wasn't in a body, right? And so that's where I discovered right away that we all come from there, all of us. If we believe we have a soul, and if we even believe we lived in prior lives, and whether we believe that or don't believe that, just try this on. Just imagine that if it's true, last lifetime you were not in that body, nor any of you who are watching and are listening were in the body in which you're now in. That's right. It's an amazing feeling, isn't it? To know every minute from conception to death, we're in the body that we're in. And that means the last lifetime you were in a different body. And I was in a different body. Well, for me, that was life changing. That helped me realize that actually we're all one in whatever way you imagine it before we even become all human.
So you
Us,
just got this as a download while we were up there?
yes, I just experienced it. Nobody was talking to me yet. That's about to happen.
Okay. Okay.
I was just experiencing. We're all one. We come from the same source. We've had prior lives, and and at the same time, once we land in whatever body we land in, we become the only DNA in the history of life on Earth. We are not yet exact matches of our parents, our siblings, our friends, our other gender, or whatever, however we identify ourselves. We are unique. Yes, we have a lot in common in between being simultaneously one and uniquely different. Lots of things about one another that are different. And suddenly I learned we're all one and uniquely different, and the differences are now gifts to me instead of a problem. Because growing up with ethnocentrism and only other whites, I didn't have the lucky experience of being able to connect with another human very deeply. Sure, we're polite when we see each other on the streets, etc. But that's not the same as connecting at a deep, soulful level and going, wow, I really see you past your body. I see and feel that you're open and alive and just as amazingly human as I feel. So that was an amazing learning. And I try to tell all these stories less about me, but more in a way that they help you look at your own self and see what you can take. Okay. So that's one. Check that out. We're all one, uniquely different, and we each have the opportunity to relate to each other, to bridge the differences between us in such a way that we learn about the other. And we only learn when we listen. Every time we speak, including now, I'm only saying what I already know. So it's quite amazing for me to learn, wow, if I just ask you about you and listen, I learn more. So that's one learning. Well, that wasn't enough because a voice then came to me. Well, I'm still in the light. And not everybody has that experience. Some call it a conversation with God. Um, and the voice said to me very clearly, because I had heard other people who've been out and back and had experiences, and they chose to stay or chose to come back, or they didn't have a choice, whatever. This voice said to me, Lewis, you are called here to have this conversation and to be sent back because you're not doing your work. Oh, well, what is my work? I said, lifting my arms, sort of like the Episcopalian that I was raised. Like,
So did you see a being or?
no, that great question. In this case, no, I saw no energy, no being. I just heard it. Okay. And I was very clear that it was in charge. It called me to this moment precisely because I didn't yet know what was keeping me from being all I was capable of being. And that was its question in a male voice. We all get whatever voice we need that we hear best. Well, I heard a voice, maybe much like mine, a male, you know, Midwestern accent, whatever.
So, do
So
you think you were gently nudged because of an agreement you may have made before life?
don't know if I made an agreement, but I do know that
Mm,
yes. And remember, I said I didn't know what I'm going to do when I grow up or what I'm here for and what my purpose is. Well, since I hadn't figured it out myself, I was called to have this conversation.
it's
But,
wonderful.
but anyway, in the light, before I came down and after I was asked, what is it, Lewis, that does keep you from being all you're capable of being? And I didn't know. I sort of said, take me, I'm yours, I'll do your work. And the voice said, no, no, no. It's not my work you need to do, Lewis. It's your work. And I went, well, what is my work? And that's when I was asked, well, what is it that keeps you from being? That's when I got that question, all you're capable of being. And I didn't know because I was raised very comfortably in Midwest sort of privilege and I didn't have crises. I hadn't had crises and I had love and education. And so I had to go deeply. And I came up with, well, I think it's when my parents said, we're all one under God, and yet, not but still, and yet, given the privilege with which you were raised, you have more. So, give back and serve. Noblesse oblige. This is the French version of that. And yet, what they made me feel was that I had something better. Not that my soul was better than anybody else's, but in society, I was better in terms of all I could get. Well, that actually didn't make me feel good. It not only made me feel not arrogant, it almost made me feel like it's not fair. So I didn't feel shame and guilt, nor did I feel arrogant. I just thought, I don't like looking at everybody else and thinking I'm better than you. I didn't like that. So I said, my answer to the question was, it must be that I never knew how to do the bridging, the word I've used before now, the bridging across differences. And that made me realize, oh, that's a real weakness of mine, that I can't meet you even halfway across the bridge. You had to do it all. And the voice said, well, then there it is, Lewis. There's your work. And I was immediately sent back down the same tunnel without another word. I remember coming back into my body completely, like tight surgical gloves, that don't fit until they're right down between the fingers. And this white light disappeared out of the totaled automobile, and I'm sitting there with no physical damage in 77. So I had hit my shoulder on the edge, but it didn't break it or anything. I didn't mean I had no impact. I mean I had no damage. So I walked out of the car and said to the ambulance, well, there's nothing wrong. And that's all. I never said. I didn't say for probably 10 years what had happened and what my experience was. But my life changed immediately. And here's another learning for other people, maybe, depends on your own life. I started to feel that doors started to open for me on their own instead of the ones I or my family opened for me. What a big difference and a really wonderful learning for me because I stopped feeling like I have to be in control and just enter wherever I can feel there's an opportunity to learn. That's life changing. And
Thanks so
and
much for sharing that. That
okay, yeah,
was very
lots.
profound.
So where it led was that uh, I felt called to go to business school to learn the language of organizations, even though in applying to business school, I said to them, I'm never going to want to go work inside a corporation. I grew up with that culture and I don't want to live like that. But from the outside, I want to help other men, especially like me. I know we all need to learn to do this if we don't already know, but I can only teach what I myself had to learn. So I'm not so arrogant to think I can help fix you. But if there's another straight white man who is as ethnocentric as I was, I like to coach. I can speak or facilitate or coach, but I'd rather facilitate or coach and go, wow, how do you feel, and how do you relate to others that are different, and etc. until we open them up. So I've been doing that professionally for like 43 years, all because that was my calling. Because at business school, I met a woman I fell in love with, and she was global and spoke lots of languages. So we co-created together, 100, not 50-50. 100, meaning I don't have a clue how she knew what needed to be taught. But she didn't have a clue who knew what I knew, which is how to both raise the money and do the sales and the marketing and do the public TV and the speaking. So it took two of us, and that kind of partnership, you can call it yin yang or 50-50, 100, whatever you call it. I've never stopped loving the partnership at all levels, from romance to just friends that can co-create what none of us can do alone. So there's another amazing learning, and that's never stopped.
That's awesome.
Gee, why wasn't that enough? Why did I need to get hit again? I wondered, because it's really life has been wonderful. Well, 20 years later, on Father's Day, June 15th, 97, when I took my 10-year-old son up to Montana to celebrate the graduation of his 14-year-old sister, remember the daughter who helped change my life?
Yes.
She, like her creatively brilliant mother, is bipolar. I don't know what that feels like. I and my son are so balanced, we don't even know what it would feel like to be manic or depressive. We are. And so, therefore, she really, really helped me learn how to really listen and understand another's experience that I can't understand. And so she was in a recovery school and at very young age, 13 to 15, and we went up for her graduation. And at the graduation, I said to them, you know what? Let's celebrate. Tomorrow's Father's Day. And I've taught you skiing and walking in nature and all of that, but I've never taken you on a whitewater river trip. Will you do that with me? And they didn't know what that was. So they said, sure, Dad. And so we did. And as we were going down the river and the water got faster, my 10-year-old son was looking at me like, oh. And I said to him, trust me, you're going to love this. And I have no memory of anything that happened after that. I will tell you what happened, but I have to tell you. And we're all okay now, so now you can hear. And that is when the water got really fast and high, trees had been falling in the river because it was springtime and there had been snow melt and prior rains. And well, no, it was summer, sorry, but there had been snow melt and spring rains. There we go. So in the summer, the water was very high and wide and fast. And 100-foot tall tree fell off the edge of the river and landed right on my head and my son's head and missed my daughter. And the guide in the boat, to which I have returned 20 years later, I did, just to go back with my daughter and my son and my current and perfect lifetime wife. And we just went back to find out where were we and what had happened. So now I can tell you what happened, but not my own memory. What happened was when the tree hit, I was crushed here. The brain went the other direction, got crushed against the skull. The left temporal, left frontal lobe was so destroyed that the MRI looks like a baseball, and it still does because of what brain plasticity and on its own had done to recover from the damage of that part of the brain. And I couldn't, because of that damage, I wasn't able to read, write, walk, or talk when they found out I was alive, but they thought I was dead. The tree was still stuck on my head on the edge of the river. And my son, they thought was dead because he was face down, drowned in the bottom of the raft. And the raft was sitting still because the tree was holding it there, because its roots were still there and the water was going by. And my daughter was sitting in there feeling, oh, my father's died My brother's dying in my arms because they had picked him up and knocked the water out and said he is alive and put him in my daughter's arms and said, you got to try to keep him alive by talking to him and keeping his eyes open. And the ambulance helicopter will be here in an hour, but he's only got a couple hours to live. And then it'll come back and get your father because they found out at least, even though the tree was on me, I was making sounds. I had some life. So anyway, to make I know what an accident. And but to make a long story short, when they flew me back to San Francisco to start brain injury recovery, it took 3 years of going to the hospital daily for a year and a half, and then maybe 3 days, and then two, and then one, until they thought I was okay. But in the beginning, I literally couldn't read or write or make my body work. My body wasn't damaged. The brain couldn't make it work. The parts that work on their own were fine in this case, the lungs and the heart, etc. But I couldn't walk. And I didn't know who you were if you came into the room. A friend, anybody. And I had an amazing new life-changing experience. Very similar for me that as it was in the light. And that is when I was holding those horror. This is the first week of 3 years. Thank goodness I had what I'm going to tell you, this experience the first week. I was trying to walk on those horizontal bars and I couldn't. And I noticed again, wow, my body's not functioning. My brain is damaged. I can't talk. I wasn't thinking. I wasn't able to think the way we're used to thinking about where I am. It was again what I only can call my soul, my essence, my core, my spirit. You call it what you feel is true. I don't know. Science can't prove any of it yet. But this essence got, wow. Oh, and I love using the metaphor of the tornado I grew up with, or if you grew up with a hurricane, you know the center is totally still. Zero energy at the very center of 150-mile-an-hour winds. So what I like about that metaphor is I got that at my very core of my body, that I, at the soul level, I'm not my body. I'm not my brain. Here in human form, yes, I incorporate all those things as part of who I am in this lifetime. So I'm not degrading any of it. It's just that there is an essence that isn't our body and isn't the brain. Those are human forms. So what I got, wow, I can't move my body. I can't read, write, walk, or talk. I don't know who I am or anything, but you know what? Who I am in this body and out in nature. But I became very clear, but I'm fine. I, at the soul, am fine with everything that's going on in my body or my life. Now, the reason I love sharing that is I really, really want you all to be able to take that in and imagine that for yourself, just like being up in the light. What other gift did I get out of that?
Yes.
Well, how did I know you might ask that? What? One gift I got out of that, which took a long time for me to get, was not only the same one I'd had in the light, which is, hey, I'm fine and so are you. But it was the one in which once I was chosen to do that life and help run that cross-cultural diversity training for 20 years, and then lost my left frontal lobe, which had helped manage and make all that happen. Even though it was driven by soul and spirit, the being, the doing was done with the brilliance of our brain, then to helping to tell the body and the personality what to do. And now it was dysfunctional. So now is when I learned to just stay in the core and do my best, even though I'm human, I'm back to human form, so my personality shows sometimes. So that's another learning everybody, I hope, can have and just feel within themselves. And so for that second 20 years, I couldn't run the company anymore. I had to do 3 years of recovery. I had to sort of shut it all down, mostly. I left one employee to help with some videos or whatever until it all died eventually. But I learned instead to coach, to really one-on-one coach. And as I used that word before, I didn't tell you that, as you can imagine, even hearing me speak, I had, without any training, I had been able to use whatever this body and personality grew up with, that I could speak either on TV or facilitating. I could facilitate training, or I could speak to 500 or 1,000 people for an hour without scripting it. But anyway, so that was one thing I kept with me, was that ability, but of just staying the core. But that's a good thing to have when you're coaching. Because one of the first thing I learned when I went to coaching certification was when they said to me, Lewis, you got to stop talking. You do that really well, Lewis, but for this course, you have to shut up. You have to pretend you're a deaf, dumb, stoned surfer dude. Your mouth is taped, and you can only listen to what the other person is saying their need is and their problem is. And then the only thing you can do is ask them another question that'll help them uncover their answer, because the answer is within them. The answer for them is not within you, Lewis. So I did learn how to do that, and what a gift. But I had to learn it. I'm humbly needed to learn it. So listening is an amazing, amazing skill. And people who study it, and I've learned, oh, there's a level of listening so I understand, but I'm waiting to hear what my answer is, or I want to correct you. Or there's a listening where I really do listen till I hear what you feel, but I don't feel it yet. I'm just being polite and listening, or I'm curious and I'm hearing. It can even go deeper, to learn to listen so that, oh my God, I actually can feel what you're saying. That enables me to have more real empathy. So what else did I need to learn? Well,
So, was it hard to integrate those extraordinary experiences into the your daily ordinary experiences?
yeah, as I said, they never left. I've never stopped feeling that I and you came from the light, and now you're in that body and I'm in this body. And I never stopped feeling that I try to stay in my core. And if the audience that is looking at us was here in front of us in a room, I'd just be right with them. I'd be looking at them, feeling how they're responding. Are they, and if it was small enough, I would get interactive and facilitate, and I'd want to hear from them or someone in the audience. It's fantastic. All right, so what else did I need to learn? Well, um, 20 years later, 25 years later, in 2020, 5 years ago, and about 25 years after the other one, actually 28 years, that was 97. So I got diagnosed with having stage 3 cancer, colon cancer. And I'm really lucky when I tell you what happened in the 6 month of chemotherapy. I caught the first COVID in 2020 from the nurse giving me chemo. And the first one attacked our lungs and hearts so quickly, that's why within 2 weeks, people were dying and we were watching them put into trucks in New York on TV or wherever we live. And we've lost people in our own family or friends. Almost all of us have. I lost a first cousin my age in 2 weeks. And in 1 week, I was already having trouble breathing. And when my wife reported me to the hospital, they said, well, we can't take him into ER until he's positive. Because if he's not positive, he might catch it. Well, now it takes what, 10 minutes to take a home test and find out. But guess what? It took a whole week then for the first test to find out. So by the end of the second week, that virus was absolutely destroying my lungs, and I was having very much difficulty breathing. And I finally got in just in time, and they tried to force air in, but they do that with certain ways, like you take a mask that's pushing air in at different degrees to see if they can get it through and into your lungs, but they couldn't. My lungs wouldn't take it. It may sound strange, but they wouldn't. And I said, "Oh, I can't breathe that." And they said, "You have to, or we'll put you under the ventilator." And I said, "No, my cousin died under the ventilator. You can't take me under the ventilator." He took me. And then I actually spent 10 days up above the ventilator in a coma, drug-induced coma. So I couldn't feel any pain in my body and my brain couldn't think. But I was up there and I'd been there before, so I didn't freak out. I just noticed all the things I noticed. And finally, the story that's worth hearing is on the last 2 days. They told my wife on the second to last day. Of course, they didn't know if I was going to live. So when I say the last day, that's because I did come back, but we didn't know that then. So on the eighth day, let's say, um, they told my wife they didn't think they could bring me back because my heart had failed. And they managed to get the heart back. But that whole night while I was up there, I don't know I don't want to count wrong. So let me say somewhere between 7 and 12 other souls were up there with me. So it sounds strange, but there we were. And there came the next morning, it's as if somebody came and unlocked the locks on these sections, and everybody else went and flew away. And I thought, whoa, well, I'm still here. Well, when are you going to let me, I hope, come back to life instead of, and I was hanging on for life. Like, I don't even know how to describe how much I was clearly hanging on, except if you just imagine hanging on a pull-up bar, whether you can do 10 or 20 of them or whether you can't do any, you're hanging on for dear life, just hanging. And you know how far down it is? No, not 10 feet. You can't jump. I'm talking about I just wouldn't leave me. I knew I had to come back, not only to love my wife and her two kids and my two kids, and still love the mother of my two kids. We are all friends, luckily. But how was I going to be able to do that? And what am I going to do? Well, I got, in addition to life and breathing and love of my wife and kids and every child I see and everybody I meet who's open, my work wasn't done. My so-called cross-cultural diversity work wasn't done. They called my wife and said, "Well, I don't think we can bring him back tonight either, the last night, because his lungs are so collapsed." They were about 80% collapsed. There was hardly anything left. It wasn't just all squished together. These virus had just killed it. And then inside the lungs, there's mucus or whatever is in there. And they had to send tubes down to try to clean out the lungs and open them up. And they were able to get most of it. And I picked 80% because now I feel like they're 80% fine, but not the other 20. Sometimes my voice sounds at the end of the day even rougher than now, but it's a little rougher now because it's later in the afternoon. And when I'm breathing, and some of you can and some of you cannot imagine what it feels like when you can't breathe at all. Oh, it was so awful. And so it took a year to get off an oxygen machine and learn to be able to breathe without needing it to come into me. But it is so great. And what is the most amazing learning there? All I can tell you, because the biggest gift for me was that while I was up there, I, as it turns out, I can't be arrogant and say you always can control whether you pass or not. So I want to say my experience is there comes a time and under certain circumstances where you can either choose to let go. In fact, when it becomes the natural time to go, I believe that's what happens. You can go, hey, this is okay. Okay. I really mean that. That's what my 93-year-old father did, you know? But there's also a time there where you can choose not to go. You can choose to live and give it all the power you have to live and do whatever is necessary to live and survive. It's an amazingly powerful inner passion we all have. For all of us who've been in any close call at all, we have a really strong desire to live and keep it. And when you're in trouble, you notice when you feel you have a choice to let go or to stay and to live. Now that's a really powerful moment I had.
For those who may not have had an NDE like me, but who long for deeper connection to purpose, what would you say to them?
My experience tells me the best thing for you to hear is sort of what I told that girl, and that is whatever's going on in your body, whatever's going on in your family, what's ever going on in your chemistry, in your mental capacity, whatever's going on around you, whatever trauma you have felt, however difficult it is, just notice that inner part of you that is absolutely nothing but light and love and energy and soul and spirit. And that by itself is a really wonderful part of you. And it is so freeing to discover it and to feel it. And then to realize, you know what? For me, just to be here, be the me, the authentic me in the center of this body, and then the authentic body that I'm in. Oh my God, this is so much easier than faking it or trying to be like you want me to be or like somebody else wants me to be. And this even enables me maybe to overcome this disease or this crisis or this broken leg or this heart or whatever it is, or get away from these people that aren't right for me. I, soul level, am. And you know what they told me after I said, I just am? They said, yes, but psychologists or theorists said, there's no I in that. That's human ego. Just am. So, whichever one works for you. But once we discover the soul being, then we can attach the I to it in this body, and then we can do, driven by our authentic being. It's way more effective than not being authentic and just doing, which doesn't always work very well, does it? But the other last thing I'll say is that by being our authentic self, you know what happens? It's much easier to see and meet other people who are being their authentic self. And the other thing that's worth it, oh my goodness, I thought of another learning, but it came in after coaching and leadership. When I learned that we're each one and don't have any, whatever our differences, height, looks, education, accent, um, size, age, anything, job, power, in this relationship, we are one together with nothing over the other and nothing under the other. Doesn't it feel good?
What advice do you have for someone who is at the edge of death or who has a loved one who's at the edge of death? What advice do you have for them?
My experience there is mostly, most directly with my two 93-year-old parents. Now, that's different than my wife's mother who died at 53 in a major disease. That's not as easy, but it's still, I will still get to what you still need to know. And that is first, you need to trust and believe, whether you've experienced or not, that what I said, this is where we all come from. When I did that with my parents, my father at 92 was still very fine, and he fell in his body after the falling started to be less than. And then but I said, now that you've had that accident and you've heard all my stories, can you imagine now what it feels like to leave and go into the light? And he said, no, son. I wake up every morning loving your mother, and I'm not going anywhere. Those were his words. And about 6 months later, when he was halfway gone, I said, notice, you're trying to get up every day out of the bed now, and you're trying to walk up and down the hall and still be athletic like you once were. But you're mostly covered over and looking like Mr. Magoo, if any of you remembers that, or something like that. And he said, so I said, are you ready to go yet? And he went, it's a difficult decision now, son. He really said that. I'm torn, but no, not yet. And then there came a time when he was sleeping almost all the time. And my mother was still fine at 90, at 4 years, 5 years younger, was 88. So she was reading to him. And one day, when I knew he was leaving soon, I drove down from San Francisco to Santa Barbara, where they were in a retirement home, and he was napping. And when he came out of the nap, he looked at me and my mother and said, "Oh, I just had the most amazing time with my old friend Jack." And my mother said, "No, darling, he died 5 years ago." And I went, "Mom, Dad, you did visit Jack. Now do you believe maybe what I said of where we come from and where we go? You did visit Jack, and now you're back here. Now, how do you feel about whenever is your time to go?" And he said, "It's okay now, son." He left 2 days later while she was reading to him. She didn't even know he'd left because he was just sleeping. And they came in and tested him and said, "Mary, he's gone." So it's possible to leave that peacefully, right? So if they're about to go and they're open to hearing about it, great. And if they're not about to go and it happens suddenly, then I just want you to know where they've gone and trust where they've gone. And if it's anything in between, it's in between. But it's true for all of us. And one of these days, it won't be my sixth to ninth near death coming back. I am doing my best never to have another one until it's time. But when it's
Thank
time,
you.
I'm not afraid.
Thank you so much for being here with me today. I really enjoyed this conversation. And I have three questions for you, three quick questions. What
Okay.
brings you joy and laughter these days?
I want to say this.
Yes. What would you whisper to younger Lewis who is just beginning his journey?
It's interesting. It's so easy to go back. I would, I guess I put it this way as I learned being a father.
There's one blessing or message you'd like to leave today. What would it be? One final message or blessing.
For me, it is that I I love and therefore I want you to try to love, that now in this present is all there is. We can't change the past. We can learn from it. We can learn parts of it and not. And we can't totally control everything about the future. I know we have to plan if you want to get that plane at that time, or if you want to go to that school. There are a lot we can do, but that the present is still all we've really got at this moment, because it could end one moment from now. And by being in that present and remembering to enjoy every breath and be in this present, and then practice all the things we just shared together. Just me be me and you be you, and now what?
That's
That's
wonderful.
it.
So, how can people reach you, Lewis?
You can look me up on LinkedIn. If you're publishing what my name is, I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm on Facebook, but I don't use Facebook much. I'm there, but and I can be emailed, my first name at my last name, lewis@griggs.com.
Thanks again for joining me today. And thank you for continuing to spread the word of hope and diminishing fear. It's going to be a homecoming that when we get reunited with Source, and death is
Yeah.
nothing to be afraid of.